Right, this is Craig Oxley again on October the 2nd, 2008 at 20 past 3 hours in the morning, nice and early as usual. Right, I'd like to first speak about these protocols of the learned elders of Sion, which really is with an S, not a Z. Right, where did these first appear? Right, let's get a bit exact on this, right. They were first published back in 1903, right, in the country known as Russia, right. But we know now how they first came about in that city of Isis known as Paris in France, and this was back in 1837, right. The protocols were part of a plan to destroy the Jewish and bring about war with the Protestant Germany, right. So all the blame basically was to be laid at the feet of the Jew, as they always do, you know, it's the usual. What also occurred out of it was the readmittance of the Society of Jesus back into France. What a shock. I mean, they'd been expelled back in 1880 and 4 times previous to this from France, right. You'll notice also that only 8 years prior to this, the Society of Jesus was expelled from Germany as well. What you won't hear from most is that these protocols of the elders of Sion, originated back in 1492. That's 1492, and it was within a city in Italy known as Rome. So yes folks, you know, this document goes back even further than the Society of Jesus. I mean, the Society of Jesus was only created in 1534. I've just spoke about, well before that. The Society of Jesus basically used this. It's now a 516-year-old document for their own wishes, right, as highlighted earlier, you know, I've just said. And there's yet another veil, right, which shields them and this divine dragon once again. We even saw, right, the Society of Jesus utilised the same technique earlier against the clique following Cornelius Jansen, and these were known as the Jansenists, right, and they used the same titling in the document against them, and it was known as the Protocols of the Elders of Bourg-Fontaine, Fontaine, and Bourg is Bourg, right. Now where were these Jansenists based exactly? Why, it was that Luciferian city again, Isis, Paris in France. I mean, it's bloody popular, isn't it? It's a popular location, you know, everybody seems to want to be part of Isis, you know, the so-called City of Love. With its great big phallic tower, Eiffel Tower, you know. So, you know, the Pope destroyed the Jansenists finally in 1708. I mean, check into the 15th protocol in the Learned Elders, you know, the protocols of Zion. 15th protocol, and basically it's creating a false enemy whilst failing the Church of Rome. That false enemy is the Jew, you know. Now, please note how the timing for the publishing of these protocols in Russia was perfect for the rise of communism and the Bolsheviks, right? And I mean, that's another veil of the Jesuit order. I mean, let's not forget how the Society of Jesus, right, had been expelled from Russia again in 1820, right. The Society of Jesus did have the Knights of Malta though, who they controlled, still in Russia, which, you know, they've had good ties to Russia since 1798, the Knights of Malta. From these knights you had the organisation and funding, along with the Knights of the political power, which is New York, behind the revolution, this Bolshevik revolution, right, which started in 1917, Now, straight after the Luciferian 5-year revolution, it was 5 Lucifer, right, Venus. Straight after this 5-year war, which ended in 1922, 2 times 11, you know, we had Jesuit Joseph Stalin, because he was actually a Jesuit, right, meeting with Georgetown Jesuit soldier Edmund A. Walsh, right, he's the one we got pictured with, oh God, what was his name, the big man over the military at the time. It's gone, I can't remember now. We've got a few pictures of him, you know, with decent people. Now, yeah, with this Edmund A. Walsh. So, what happened then? Right, all of a sudden, the Society of Jesus gets readmitted into Russia after 102 years. You know, with this Edmund A. Walsh character. Right? I mean, the Society of Jesus, they've tried many times in the past. You know, with Napoleon in 1812, and then you had the Jesuit Klisk sect, Rasputin in 1903. He was a Jesuit. He was a Jew or whatever, but he was a Jesuit. That's well hidden. You had Jesuit Stalin was controlled by a Jesuit soldier named Felix Dzerzhinsky, and ultimately the Society of Jesus' Superior General at the time, which was I can't really say it properly, Volod Emir Ledachowski. Right? Let's hope I don't have to say that name too often. The Jesuits, right, got what they wished for in this 1922, and then in 1925 they had their Institute of Pacific Relations created, which governs the foreign policy over Russia, and it makes Russia subordinate to Rome's command centre, which is the city of London, the old city basically, which they gained control of in 1815. Using their offjude and Rothschilds, these keepers of the Vatican treasury, you know, if you look in the Judaic Encyclopedia. Now, these off-Judans, right, have been so since Babylon, basically, always under this control of the Babylon mystery religion, right, which is now what you know as the Divine Dragon, Rome, the Church of Rome, the Vatican. Now these off-Judans, right, were given control over the banking in the early 11th century, right. I mean, why was this? Well, it was an acceptance, right, of these off-Judans for them being property of the Norman Anglo-Saxon kings, you see, and of Great Britain itself. We now, right, have the Talmudic law since 1066, which is the law of the land. Now the first complete Talmud, right, was published in Venice in the early 16th century by Daniel Bomberg. Now there's Venice again, connection with the Venetians. Remember the Queens of Venetian Guelph, you know, from the House of Wealth. Plenty of L's in that, isn't there? But, so yeah, you got this Daniel Bomberg, right? Bomberg. Now these off-Judans you see today, right, are merely these Sabbatean Frankists, who are, I mean, they're as far from Judaism as possible. They follow the Kabbalist who by the name of Sabbatai Zevi, which is Sabbatai, and then second name Zevi, Zevi, and he was from the 17th century. And then you had this Jacob Frank, who was from the 18th century, right? Both of these, right, were false messiahs, and that's just like this other one known as Menachem Mendel Schneerson, which is Schneerson, and the first name is Menachem. right? Now, if we look into this Sabbatean movement, we see its origins point to actually the year of 1534. Now, 1534 was the same year the Society of Jesus was really formed. Yeah, the connection is this Yitzhak, which is Yitzhak, right? Yitzhak ben Sholomo Ashkenazi, right? So that's Ben for Ben, Sholomo for Sholomo, and then Ashkenazi, which is Ashkenazi, right? And he was from Safed in North Jerusalem. So once again we see the Kabbalah being powerful from that particular region, of Israel. So yeah, we've got this Yitzhak, right? And he'd been brought up and trained as a child in Cairo of Egypt. So once again, you've got that powerful land which houses the really powerful Masonic lodge, the Darul Hikmat. The same lodge again which the Latins of Jerusalem king, Don Juan Carlos of Spain, uses to rule the Middle East as this small Middle Eastern navigator, you see. Right? Now, in the middle of the 16th century, we saw in Warsaw of Poland, right, this Yitzhak guy actually baptised into the Church of Rome. So, how very telling is that? You know what I mean? So you got these Sabbateans, right, who are nothing more than Hofjudens controlled through high-level Jesuit Freemasonry. Like I said before, the powerful Cecil family of England, right, were Hofjudens working for the Pallavicini family, right? Now it seems some people have got a bit lost on my site and stuff because of the spelling. But what you've got to remember is this family is known under a few different spellings. A couple of them are such as Paravicino, P-A-R-A-V-I-C-I-N-O, and then there's P-A-L-L-A-V-I-C-I-N-O, it was a couple. So look into the ties with the Pallavicini family and the control over the land of Akhenaton, right? The 18th dynasty Egyptian pharaoh, right? Akhenaton, and that's that land, that control by that family was over Athens in Greece, right? Athens comes from Akhenaton. Yeah. If you take away the H, you get Athens, don't you? So you've got this Cecil family, right? Who were like the dominant Hofjuden family in England at the time, right? The family which the Hofjuden Masonic Rothschilds just wished to be part of, and interbreed with. What's really interesting is how a Pallavicino by the name of Henry married into the Cecil family itself, and he married Elizabeth, who was the daughter of Dorothy Cecil, right? Now he also married previously into the Cromwell family by marrying Catherine Cromwell, who was the daughter of Oliver Cromwell, but not the one that you are aware of. This was the uncle of that one, right? He was the actual uncle of the Oliver Cromwell that interests us in the Reformation movement, So what's also funny is that his uncle's wife, who was Anne Hoftman, right, Hoftman, eventually remarried to Oliver Cromwell, right? Again, this uncle of the famous Oliver Cromwell, right? So, talk about keeping it in the family, it's unbelievable. These are what you want to know as